Hi, I'm Michaela, and I will be discussing the Oriental rat flea, otherwise known as Xenocella chupus.
And I'm Brittany, and I will be talking about the malaria mosquito, also known as the Anopheles quadrumaculatus. We will be discussing why we believe the plague vector, Oriental rat flea, or the common malaria mosquito has caused the most human suffering.
The Oriental rat flea is a small but destructive organism that has had a catastrophic impact on human society historically. Biologically, the Oriental rat flea is a parasitic insect that thrives by feeding on the blood of primarily rats and humans. It goes through four life stages: egg, larva, pupa, and adult, with an average lifespan of 2 to 3 months. It has an adapt it has adapted to its role as a vessel for the bacterium for plague, also known as Yersinia pestis. It ingests infected blood from rodents and transmits the disease to humans through bites. Behaviorally, the Oriental rat flea jumps between hosts after it dies off from the very disease it helps spread, usually choosing a rat for the host, but bites humans as at last resort, and this makes it a highly dangerous vector for plague. Historically, this flea has been unmatched in its destruction, particularly its role in the 14th century Black Death, where nearly 25 million people died in Europe. It triggered one of the most devastating pandemics and mass human suffering. What makes the Oriental rat flea so dangerous is the capability to carry and transmit the Yersinia pestis pathogens without being affected itself. It is not just the biology of this vector, but the consideration of its history, adaptability, and behavioral qualities that allowed it to be one of the largest contributions to human suffering throughout history.
The malaria mosquito has four life stages, beginning with an egg, then larva, pupa, finally the adult. Each stage varies depending on the temperature, but the egg usually hatches between 1 to 3 days. And once in the larva stage, the mosquito has four larval instars that takes between 5 to 15 days. Then the pupal stage that lasts 2 to 6 days before finally becoming an adult. Once they are an adult, they have a few more days left to mate and reproduce. They usually mate near bodies of water with vegetation, and once the female emerges from her pupal stage, the male locates her to mate. This takes 10 to 15 seconds in the air, and once completed, the female needs blood meals to provide nutrients to the egg. These mosquitoes have a negative impact on society and have killed over 608,000 people since 2022. They are one of the number one causes in some countries for child immortality rate due to the lack of proper supplies to fight the infection that they cause. The way that they pass on malaria is by their saliva once they bite into a person's skin. Once transmitted, malaria can cause liver infection, severe anemia, cerebral malaria, and respiratory distress. In more severe cases, but most common symptoms are chills, fever, sweating, and an inflaming itchy bite. These mosquitoes are these bites are also treatable if caught in a timely manner, but if not treated in time, it can become a severe illness leading to potential death. Malaria mosquitoes are one of the biggest hazards around the globe.
While the common mosquito has surely played a significant role in human suffering, when it comes to a geographical standpoint, this species is really found only in North America, while the Oriental rat flea is a common species in other areas of the world as well. So its distribution is at a high chance. When we address the impact through disease, the mosquito is only known to transmit malaria, while the Oriental rat flea has been known to transmit not only the plague, but also murine, typhus, and other pathogens. With this vector's versatility, it increases the chance of causing human suffering. While malaria is a disease we have successfully taken some control of and progressed in treatments, the plague is still a concern for many parts of the world, and the Oriental rat flea has the ability to survive in many different climates. This shows its persistence. Plague outbreaks have also led to severe economic consequences.
Um, while the malaria is most commonly in one country, it does have a large number of people that it affects and even kills every year compared to the plague. While the mosquito can only cause malaria, one can see that the mosquito has still outnumbered all the Oriental rat fleas with 200 million to 500 million new cases per year, with 1 to 2.5 million deaths per year. While malaria is well controlled in the US, it is not well controlled in Africa, where 90% of malaria cases are. They're able to adapt to climate change, and warmer climate accelerates their development as well increases their biting. Due to being mainly in Africa, a very warm climate, mosquitoes thrive and are able to populate many areas of civilization. In addition to this, in the year 1965, there's a dramatically lower economic growth for 25 years from malaria alone. According to Medscape, there was only a reported number of 4,547 cases with 786 deaths, accounted from 2010 to 2019, which is relatively low compared to the recent cases and deaths reported in just a year for malaria. While the Black Death causes a spreading of infection throughout the body by the disease it carries, malaria can cause even worse by organ failure.
Though 2010 to 2019 had a lower reported cases, however, considering the overall impact, there are still several critical factors that make the Oriental rat flea the top transmitter of the two. It is easier for transmission with just one bite from the Oriental rat flea, and the infection is hard to catch before it's too late. And once bitten, it can take as long as 8 days before you notice symptoms that you have been infected. This results in rapid disease progression and very high mortality rates. You have to take it into consideration everyone you would come into contact to within those 8 days. In this day and age, we have better treatment than the 14th century. However, you can't change the numbers of the historical impact it had. Today's numbers are comparable that malaria is taking more of a toll on people, but when being asked which has caused the most human suffering in a bigger picture, the Oriental rat flea is to be responsible.
The Oriental rat fleas might have an advantage, usually being unnoticeable when biting their victim, but there are 5 different species of mosquitoes that cause malaria. Compared to the over 100 species of mammals that causes the plague, it only takes 5 species of mosquitoes to cause millions of deaths each year. Once a person catches malaria, it only takes 24 hours for the infection and its symptoms to appear. In addition to this, people can have symptoms from 7 days to a year after the infection has passed, which can be more severe than death in some cases due to fevers, chills, headaches, nausea, and many more symptoms. Some would argue that this is worse than death, since it takes malaria 24 hours to spread and takes 7 to 30 days for the symptoms to appear. Malaria can be life-threatening and potentially be too late to heal the person once they notice they have malaria.
The Oriental rat flea has left a significant impact on human suffering throughout history compared to the common malaria mosquito for several reasons. It has a large historical significance from the Black Death pandemic in the 14th century. Its estimated death toll was around 50 to 60% of Europe's population at the time. The economic consequences from this were catastrophic and altered the course of human civilization. Unlike the mosquito, which can really only be found in North America, the Oriental rat flea is a common species in most parts of the world, which increases the likelihood of transmitting diseases. Its ability to survive in different types of climates makes it a persistent threat. This vector is crucial in researching diseases that are vector borne and helping to develop strategies to control them. In conclusion, both species have made significant contributions to human suffering. But when we consider historically, geographically, and economically, the Oriental rat flea has been more of a threat on human suffering.
The common malaria mosquito has caused millions of deaths each year, especially in Africa and subtropical areas near Africa, where there are not enough medical advantages to help them cure malaria before it's too late. It can also contain mild symptoms up to severe symptoms like organ failure. Additionally, malaria can take up to a week or more to appear as malaria, but can cause mild signs beforehand, which can be too late to treat. These mosquitoes are being studied in labs by their transmission as well as their genetics and behavior. They studied over 40 strains as well as species of mosquitoes in this experiment, as well as their genome DNA, preserved materials, and primers for vector species identification. This study is important to understand these mosquitoes and the diseases that they spread to millions of people. Researchers can potentially look into these mosquitoes and how they do not catch the diseases but spread it. This research as well shows why the malaria infesting mosquitoes choose their host. With additional research, this can potentially help the people of Africa understand and try to learn what areas are best to stay away from but future research could also potentially allow them to learn how to protect themselves from mosquitoes so they can go on with their everyday lives without avoiding such places.